I hadn't seen too many programs that would allow you to pay for a new hire or pay someone's salary for the year. You're seeing grants that are allowing you to hire personnel?
Yes,
Oh, wow.
yes,
Okay.
yes. It's just a matter of getting the right grant. To be quite honest, a lot of grants will allow you to if it's programmatic, you know.
This is DOF Creations Service Driven University. I'm Saeed Gordon. Here we discuss all things technology, focusing on leadership, policy, and practice, and the different ways that technologies continue to evolve to address the innovative and sometimes complex challenges that we're facing within this IT space. We appreciate you joining us here today and hope you enjoy. Thank you. Everyone, I appreciate you joining us today for another service driven university session. The focus of our conversation today is around grant resources, how to determine if you are grant eligible, grant ready, finding programs, and then some of the things that we and our grant partners are seeing from a grant funding priority perspective or trend perspective. So I'm Saeed Gordon with DOF, and I have Nyaesia Campbell with me. She is one of DOF Creation's grant experts and grant partners. So I would like to allow her to introduce herself and we'll go from there.
Hi, thanks so much. My name is Nyaesia Campbell, and I'm the founder and CEO of Innovative Strategies LLC. As he so graciously introduced me, we are a consulting firm that works with nonprofits, some government entities, and even some small businesses. And we help these businesses and organizations with capacity building. A lot of time that looks like grant research, grant writing, some grant management, and some other services we do provide, such as fundraising and some professional development here and there. So I am so psyched and excited to come to you and talk to you about this because, this is some amazing stuff. And I know a lot of people want to know where the money is. So, yeah, let's definitely get into it.
And I will throw out a disclaimer. A lot of times when we introduce customers or people that we haven't worked with to grants, they often ask us how we get compensated at DOF. At DOF, we're an IT consulting firm. We do not receive any compensation from the grant process. It is not permissible for us to do that. The only way we receive compensation through the grant process is if you choose to work with us after you've won a grant. So if you choose to work with us after you've won a grant and we're supporting you in a networking project or the purchase of new smart boards in your classroom or cameras to secure your a location or facility. We can receive compensation for that, but we do not receive any type of finder's fee with the grants. We don't get any compensation as it pertains to grant writing or if we help you to build a narrative and that portion around technology. We don't receive any compensation for that. All we're doing is trying to provide you with resources, help, support to hopefully make a project that was a little out of reach a little bit closer for you. Um, so with that being said, I guess the first thing that I know comes up is kind of being grant ready or grant eligible, but what are you seeing from a grant perspective as far as the major priorities this year or maybe just for this, the last couple of months? I don't know how frequently they change or how frequently they're updated.
Okay. When we're talking about grants, and especially in the grant world, um, things a lot of times are so fluid. And what we mean by that is a lot of times I told my clients to actually go and read a newspaper, go and check out what's on the news, because a lot of times current events and different things are that are very meaningful and stand out within our community are what dictates what type of money and funding that's available a lot of times. So with that, you have to keep that in mind. A lot of times when it comes to different various priorities the various priorities that funders have. So in saying that, I will say that COVID has truly changed the landscape when it comes to grants. So grants aren't necessarily like they used to be. Years ago, when you saw a grant, you could almost, set your watch by it. It was the same grant. It came around the same time. It almost looked the same. Now grants are a lot different. They're not the same. So just there are more opportunities out there because there are more opportunities for pilot programs, there are more opportunities for innovation. There's different situations and different societal issues that we have going on right now. So that also dictates the type of grants that are out there. As
Mhm.
far as what's trending, if we want to break it down, because I did go and pull a few little things out there for you guys, just to give you a little bit of information on what's going on and what the landscape is kind of looking like post COVID. So, and we pulled a lot of this information from some of our top funders as well as some of our smaller funders as well. And when we're looking at, let's just say K 12, a big focus now is on digital literacy and technology integration. So that post, pandemic, it's a lot of things that are going on to close the digital divide when it comes to schools, remote learning, increasing STEM education, and providing digital devices for students, and also just improving internet connectivity. And when we're talking about connectivity, that can also mean a great opportunities for rural communities as well. Because now post pandemic, we are seeing a lot of the gaps that weren't as apparent before that time. So there are a lot of opportunities for rural organizations, rural schools, different things like that. Also post pandemic, when we're looking at nonprofits, those are also another area that are really growing around the digital tools and data analytics on
Mhm.
that side. So you're seeing a lot of interest in cybersecurity grants and making sure that your sensitive information is being protected. So you'll see a lot of various grants that may be coming down through the pipeline through NSF. You may be seeing things coming down through the pipeline through Department of Human and Health Sciences, Health Services. You may also see some things through USDA, and also, surrounding a lot of data collection and cybersecurity grants. For government entities, that also improves the landscape for those government entity organizations as well. There have been a lot of, leaks, a lot of cybersecurity attacks and things like that that have come up. So you'll also see a lot of that. A lot of pilot programs have been trending now where they're asking for various research led grants now. Um, so you'll see things that are asking for robust networks. They're also asking for interagency communications and consortiums and partnerships. So a lot of government entities are partnering up and coming up with different solutions, as well as working with various other organizations outside of just their regular areas in order for them to, to come up with something that's innovative and something that is, really pushing the envelope, but will also allow you to be able to get some of the practical things that you need for your organizations. And as I said before, there's a lot of cross culture, cross sector trends as well.
Mm.
So a lot of various current technological needs where you're able to do collaborative projects with various organizations that may not necessarily work hand in hand, or you wouldn't think that they would work together, like maybe having an organization that partners with USDA, but then also another organization that does maybe workforce development with USDA, and then maybe putting some housing attached to it as well. So
Mhm.
a lot of cross sector trends are cropping up as well. So, I don't want to say too much about it, but the trends are all over the place, and it's given a lot of new opportunities for pilot programs right now.
Okay. And we talk about collaboration a lot, especially when you see like Homeland Security has a lot of programs around cybersecurity. And a lot of times they'll have the county as the primary or the eligible applicant. They'll allow others to kind of piggyback but you have to come in as the collaborator. So the city or maybe a school district, if they're doing a program that involves, like if they have a citywide or countywide presence, if the school district's large enough, maybe they can partner with the county or the city on that type of program. So the collaboration piece is really important. And especially what we see with some of the research initiatives, a lot of times, if you're not a large entity, you may have to partner with, say, the college, a larger college that's around you that has the resources and the capacity to manage that research initiative. We're seeing that a lot. A lot of those research programs that we see in education are around STEM enablement, or how do you bring together better connectivity or better connections to improve the availability of resources for students, to help them with learning in the classroom and outside. So that point you made about collaboration, I think, is really, really important. And we're seeing, at least I've seen quite a few grants that, they really only work if you collaborate. Maybe if you're the biggest organization, you have all the resources under one umbrella, you can. But the average organization is probably going to have to work with one or two other people to really be able to hit every point of the grant.
Yeah, and even if you are a large organization that can handle everything, like
Mhm,
even some of the larger, like schools, you have some of these major institutions out here that are still partnering with some
mhm,
other, organizations and things like that, because a lot of grants they don't necessarily tend to just go toward one, group these days.
mhm,
Nowadays, you have to show, okay, well, hey, we have this college or we have this HBCU we're going to partner with. They're going to do the research for us, but then we're going to do, the practical parts and put all the pieces together. We're going to have this organization over here that's going to perform this piece. We're going to bring in maybe a business that will
mhm.
come in and do a certain part, like for DOF, you're coming in, you're doing the cybersecurity, you're helping out in that aspect. So there's a lot of different ways, and partnerships is definitely trending right now because they want to see some collaboration. They want to see the partnership. They want to see how it's going to benefit outside of that one organization. They want to see how is this going to be sustainable,
Mhm.
in the future. So, if you have multiple resources to pull from, then that increases your ability and your capacity to be able to make a bigger, impact.
Absolutely. Um, so as we look at the trends that are out there, one of the things that comes up a lot for our customers or for the new organizations that we end up working with, when they're pursuing grants, they may have gone after a grant maybe years ago and haven't done one recently. And now they have to figure out, well, are we registered to be able to pursue grants? Do we have the proper documentation or organization entity forms? Do we have, whether it's your tax ID or your state, tax exempt status to show that you are a tax exempt or a nonprofit entity, all those types of things. So, what are some of the basics of being not necessarily eligible for any particular grant, but grant ready in that this organization is ready to actually try to pursue a grant? What are some of those administrative requirements or needs that every organization needs to make sure that they have kind of under control?
Well, what I definitely tell my clients is you definitely want to make sure that you have at least one person. Every organization doesn't may not have that type of luxury to be able to
Mhm,
have a grants team. So, but you still need to have at least one or two people that are the point people. Okay.
mhm,
They need to be the people that everyone can come back to, that knows the organization, that knows where the documents are, that when they're signing up for various for SAM registration or whatever, because a lot of these different platforms now, let's just say if you're going on grants.gov and you're going after a federal grant, some of these organizations or departments have their own site. They use grants.gov for maybe just the initial paperwork, but then they have where different platforms that you have to actually submit your proposal, your grant proposal to.
Mhm.
So what I advise for people to do is to go back through all their paperwork, make sure that they have that one contact person that will be the point of contact for all of this information. So that way nothing gets lost. So those emails, those updates and things like that goes to that one person. That's one thing that I do suggest. Also, what I would say is if you're interested in, pursuing a grant, I also say, please go back and even look at the grants that you actually are interested in. Just do just a surface level search just to kind of maybe have an idea of some of the documentation that you would
Mhm.
even need. Maybe an updated budget. You may need an organization chart.
Mhm.
Various things that you may need, and then that way, you have an old, a old proposal that you may be able to use, and having that type of information and collecting a lot of that documentation, whether you do the grant in-house or if you decide to go with a firm, like ours or with another firm out here, that will save a lot of time on the
Mhm.
back end, probably save you a lot of, money down the road by just going and collecting a lot of your information and saying, hey, this is what we have. These are the things that we have done. Collect all your program materials, all your old, all your lists of partners, all your list of your networks, different people that you've partnered with all throughout the years. Make sure you have that. Making sure that you have your contact, your specific contact person that will be available. I would say that as well. Actually, if you've gone through and applied at some of these or in some of these platforms, go in it. Just go in there and try and see if your credentials still work. If
Mhm.
they don't work, now you know where you stand. Okay.
Mhm.
You know you have up to 30 days before you can actually apply for a particular grant, depending on if you saw that grant in adequate enough time. If you did not see it within an adequate enough time, then you'll know, well, hey, we may not be in a position to get this grant this time before you start putting money into a consultant or with your team. You may be in a position where you can prepare for that grant for the next rollout.
When you say that 30 days, is it 30 days to complete all of your, SAM grants.gov registration and then you're able to go and apply for the grant? Or do you say 30 days is just the amount of time it takes to figure out how to be ready to go after any particular grant?
Well, when I say 30 days, a lot of time I think about when you're updating material or
Mhm.
updating your contacts and things like that. Or if you've never applied for a federal grant at all, now
Mhm.
you're having to get those credentials. We all know the government can be slow. I
Mhm.
mean, and to get those things set up in the system properly, to make sure that, everything is working properly, you definitely want to make sure that you give yourself at least 30 days for you to get your credentials and everything working. Doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean it's going to take 30 days. It could be 2 weeks, you know, it could be a week. But if, yeah, a lot of platforms and a lot of the departments will say at least 30 days minimum.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a couple folks, especially like as like the Cops and Stop grant are the big ones for school districts in this summer. And you have a lot of folks who maybe haven't gone after grants in a while, or let's say the district has never used any type of federal grants, maybe they use only foundation and, certain types of other grant programs, and like their registrations are all messed up. Um, then you're trying to see, well, is 3 weeks enough time? Is 2 weeks enough time? And you kind of end up feeling like you're kind of pushing it a bit. So,
Yeah, and they're not alone. A lot of organizations find themselves in that situation. And for me, it's just always better when people always keep their paperwork and documentation kind of together,
mhm,
always, and just kind of build up on it, and just always go in and check it out. Go and log in once a month, once every quarter or something like that, just to make sure that your credentials are okay, whether you're going to apply for a grant or not.
mhm,
Go ahead and make sure that you have the credentials. Um, most of some of my clients also, whether even if they're not going or even if they're not ready or in a
Mhm,
position to apply for a federal grant, I always tell them, let's go ahead and get you, into the system. It's free.
mhm,
You're not paying for anything. So it's free for you to have, be on SAMS.gov or even grants.gov for that
mhm.
matter, and go ahead and have those credentials, whether you're applying for that grant now or not. So that way, when you're ready and when you're actually ready to pursue it, all your documentation will be fine.
With some of the documentation that's needed, I know for us, obviously it's a little different, but when we pursue, say, E-rate opportunities as a service provider, we have to have quite a bit of documentation around, bank account informations to receive payment, company tax ID information, legal address, proof that you're registered and, permitted to either work in certain spaces or that this is a valid address, all that stuff. Is it the same for, say, the average nonprofit or public entity? Do they have to have a tax ID? Do they have to have like proof that, we are in fact a legitimate nonprofit or legitimate school? This is documentation from the state or from the federal government saying, yes, we are. What type of stuff would they need?
Yeah, you would definitely need that. You're
Hmm.
definitely needing your 501c3 determination letters.
Hmm.
If you've been in operation for a while, your 990s, those are things you're going to have
Okay.
anyways. Also, if you are in SAMS or because years ago you didn't have to have a UEI number, but now you have to have a UEI number. I think they changed that probably a year or two ago,
Yeah.
now where you have to have a UEI number, and some people were grandfathered in, because they already had a SAMS, and some people weren't. So, I would tell anybody, go back, check on your SAMS, and make sure that you have that, that's up to date. Um, Also, you want to have pretty much all your documentation in a row as far as, your financials. Another thing that I would say as well, make sure that all your addresses are the same. Okay. Make sure that your name, on all your legal documentation is the same. Well, I think
Yeah.
we ran into that one time with a client where their legal name and their DBA were not the same.
Hmm.
And I'm not even sure if they were officially registered as a DBA. So you have to,
Oh,
they will
okay.
kick it back. They would
Yeah.
kick it back. So now you having different addresses and you're trying to go in there. If your address changed, go back and make sure everything is exactly the same. Your bank account information, your SAMs, your grants.gov is the same, that everything is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely want to make sure that that stays the same. And when someone leaves, because I mean, it's inevitable for a lot of organizations, for, there may be some change in leadership or whatever. Let's hope that, I suggest for my clients that they have some sort of um, outgoing, some type of procedures where
Hmm.
people hand over the keys and that they know, what the passwords are for a lot of
Hmm.
these platforms. Like you'd be surprised. Some people don't know the passwords. They don't know how to get in various systems. They don't have past, grant proposals. They have no information. So now you're starting all the way over from, start from first base. And
Yeah.
you don't want to be in that predicament. And it's really unfortunate when you're dealing with some larger organizations, right? And
Yeah.
so now they have years worth of, data. They have years worth of information, and the last thing you would want is to have to bring in a consultant or someone now billing you for those hours that you have to go back and try to, create
Yeah.
something different, So boilerplate things, we love those. I know we love them in Grant World. And I'm pretty sure that you guys probably love them as well. So yeah, make sure all your addresses, everything exactly the same.
Yeah. No, we had that situation where somebody was the account admin or the account manager, and then I think the situation we saw was maybe a year or two ago they retired, and now was trying to find out who the person was And then once you found out who the person was, then trying to figure out when was the last time they provided any updates, because there were management processes in place and notifications about, different programs, and the person who was the last person to manage it left maybe a year ago. So
Ooh.
then had you been, were you checking on these things? Was there any Did anybody go back behind them to see, over the course of a year, what type of documentation was being requested from them, what type of notifications were being sent to them that maybe, I think it was a school, that maybe the school had to respond to. So that is very important, having a point of contact, um, for one, but then also if that point of contact retires, goes to a new position or a new place, how do you get that information from them? How do you transition that over?
And I would say also too, it may even be beneficial to have maybe even a generic type of email address as
Hmm.
well that many people could get in, and not necessarily it be a situation where it's tied to that one person and
Yeah.
then is disabled for whatever reasons, retirement, leaving, whatever the situation is, and now you're in a situation, you're in a pickle because you're
Yeah.
you're you're unable to actually get that information.
Yeah.
And sometimes with grants, you don't have just one person eyeballing a grant. Sometimes that goes through several different people. So I also recommend too, maybe even using various resources like Google Drive or something like that to actually house your information in. I
Hmm.
don't know. I always advise having a great CRM. I think that works.
Hmm.
Having a great CRM, but at a minimum, let's have a Google Drive or Teams document, OneDrive, whatever it is. So that way, everyone, that's involved with the grant process and administration is able to see what's going on real time, you know. Yeah. So I would definitely advise that as well because it's kind of hard when, someone leaves and you've been depending on them so much. And it's great. It's a
Hmm.
wonderful thing, but you still need to be able to have access, an adequate amount of access for others to get in there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, you mentioned grants.gov, and that's kind of like the central repository for all things grants. I have done quite a bit with grants for the last couple of years, and there are times where I get frustrated trying to go through grants.gov to find, there's a program, I know it's here. I know it opened, last year it opened in the summer. I know it's going to open again in the summer. I don't know when, but I'm trying to find it, trying to get ahead of it, and I can't find the grant. And I know the grant's there, but I can't find it. What has been your experience in trying to make the process of finding grants easier? Is there a way to do it? Is it just gonna always be challenging? And obviously that plays into one of the other hats you wear as a grant researcher,
Yeah.
because plenty of people come to you to say, I don't know what to do with this. Can you help me find it? So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a struggle. And
mhm,
it's not just a struggle for just a few people. A lot of people are struggling out here with that. There's
mhm,
some new technology that's coming out on the market right now. There's a few things that are out right now that helps.
mhm,
But there's some things that are about to, hit the market very, very soon. And I can speak to that when it comes out because
mhm,
I can't say anything right now. But I there are some resources that we use right now. We do like Grant Watch, we do instrumental, we do do a lot of filtering and sorting when it comes
mhm,
to grants on grants.gov. I have to admit it's a lot when you get to that when you get through that process.
mhm,
For us, we also Okay. For my background, because you do know this, but I used to work for a congressional office
mhm,
as a staffer. So of course I may know, where or who I can call to say, hey, look, I haven't heard anything about this. Do y'all, have any grants dropping or anything like that?
mhm,
So I know a lot of lay people may not have that type of access like that.
mhm,
However, I want to give you guys a little tip. you may even want to reach out to your government staffers, especially federal government. Um, I know my particular congresswoman, she she releases various grants or have a
Mm,
grant watch, and I think a lot of other I guess you could say a lot of other representatives that do the same.
okay.
So I would say even reach out to them because
Mm,
to be quite honest, they're public servants. That's kind of a little bit of what they do.
mhm,
So if you need help and you want to know, like, hey, I'm in agriculture, this is what I do, um, I want to be connected. I want to know if something comes out that's interesting for me and my organization. That's what they're there for. Reach out to
mm,
them. Call them, I mean, and it's not as if you have to go out and hire a lobbyist. That's something that you can do. You can reach out, call them and say, "Hey, look, I'm in your district, you know, um our organization is looking for this, and that, and we need assistance.
mm,
Is there any way that we can be on some type of, list serve, some type of, some way that someone can give us a call? Can we set up a meeting with someone in the office so that we can be, in the know of
mm.
various things?"
Absolutely. That's not something I'd ever thought to do, but that is, especially with the different, for us, for the most part, nonprofits, but especially public entities. That's something that I'm going to try to start doing if I'm not able to find what I need, or if I'm not sure what's out there, reaching out to whoever the congressional rep is for that particular area, for that particular region. That's really great. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Pre-COVID, a lot of the agencies and departments would go into various regions and do listening sessions.
Mm,
And I'm not sure if they're going to start that back up, but I have been noticing that they have been coming to the regions a lot more lately,
mm,
with various representatives and things like that. So follow some of your favorite or maybe not so favorite, representatives and see who they have coming in to the region. And if it interests you, especially if it falls up under, your interests or, your organization's interest and it's in your best interest, go to those meetings and see what could be coming down through the pipeline. For nonprofits, I would advise for them to actually check out some of their, top funders as
mm,
well. 990s and 990s is kind of like the nonprofit version of doing your tax return every year, right?
okay.
So you do those and you can go on something like Charity Navigator or something like that and go and pull a lot of the 990s from some of your top funders, from some of the people that that donate to organizations like yours. Okay. It could be a quick Google search where you can find out, you can kind of look through various funders and you can
Mm,
find out who they actually donated to, the amounts they donated to them, and everything. So that will kind of give you an idea of like, okay, so they donate $50,000 to these particular interest groups, right?
mhm,
So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to check out their website. I'm going to subscribe to their newsletter. I'm going to find out what events they are going to. And I may either one, show up at the event.
mhm,
Two, I'm going to subscribe to that newsletter. And then, and three, go up on their website and apply for some of those grants and opportunities that they have that's coming through. A lot of funders, especially like when we're talking about philanthropic and foundation funders, they are very relationship oriented. So you definitely would like to be in the room with them. So I
mhm,
suggest going to an organization, talking to them, finding, developing a relationship with them. And you want to develop this relationship so that way when if you have that rapport and you're just checking in, with them, seeing how they're doing, letting them know, hey, we have an event or something, hey, come out. You may never see them come out, right?
mhm,
But what may end up happening is you develop a relationship where they're going to be like, you know what? Here is a grant or here's an opportunity that's coming through. We're going to call them up and see if they're ready. if they want to apply, because funders will call you. Maybe not, many people don't know that, but a lot of funders will call you, even the federal government. They will call you and let you know that, they have various opportunities out there, and they want to know if you're going to apply for it. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
What's I guess, what's maybe the biggest or some of the biggest differences between a private foundation grant and a traditional government grant, whether that's, a federal or state government grant?
Okay. Some of the big differences when it comes to government grants and foundational grants, I would say the length of the application, to be quite
Mm,
honest. A lot of times, with the federal government, the length of the applications, which has gotten shorter over the
mm,
years. Okay, so they've trended into a shorter applications. Back in the
mm,
day, you would have 100-page application, grant application, easy.
mm,
It wouldn't even be a issue of that. Now a lot of them have gone down to like 20-page maximum, 30-page maximum with attachments. You know what
mm.
I mean? Which brings along a whole nother set of problems,
Yeah,
which is, they'll be asking you 1,000 questions and asking you to tell us everything about your organization within 1,000 characters. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But at the
It's
same
just not
time,
enough.
it's not enough. It's but it's not. But, it's okay. It's good though, because it keeps you from that 100-page,
Mhm,
application. But at the same time, they ask some very detailed questions. Whereas on the foundation side, they may not ask quite as much of their line of questioning may not be the same.
mhm.
They may ask very detailed questions, but they give you a little bit more grace, in my opinion. They give you a little bit more grace. And to be quite honest, I've been seeing a lot more money for organizational purposes as well, for more building up your organization, more planning grants, more operational money, to hire people and different things like that. That's kind of unheard of, but I've been hearing about it so much more lately than
Can you go
that,
over can you
sure.
can you highlight, so we actually had a charter school that was asking about being able to either pay for security personnel on staff or to get help hiring. And I told him that, we haven't seen anything like that. I hadn't seen too many programs that would allow you to pay for a new hire or pay someone's salary for the year. You're seeing grants that are allowing you to hire personnel?
Yes,
Oh, wow.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's just a matter of getting the right grant. To be quite honest, a lot of grants will allow you to if it's programmatic, you know.
Okay. All
What I'm
right.
saying is that there are some grants out there that's just straight operational, that will allow you just to do just the hires and are paying you money to hire people and increase your capacity so that you can do a lot more of the work
Hmm.
that your organization is doing. But I'm going to say this too, even with your government grants, especially when it comes to programmatic situations, you know, ask for it, you know,
Hmm.
put in there, your if you need someone to work this grant, then put that in there,
Hmm.
that you need that. That's yeah, something that you can definitely ask for. Of course, you have to be careful with that because some grants do tell you that you can only ask for a certain percentage of certain things and different things like that. But if you need to do that, then yeah, there are some grants out there that would allow you to do that.
In a general sense, what is how do you go about what's your thought process on asking for money in the grant? What we've told customers a lot of times is, we're gonna bump up, let's say, our quote to you. We're gonna increase our quote to you if we can't be certain as to what the final price is. Like if we have a general idea that this is gonna be, say, roughly 100,000, it ends up being, say, 75 or something like that, but we'll still probably provide them with the documentation and stuff that shows like 90,000 just to be on the safe side. Is that Do you see most people getting 100% of what they could get, or do grants tend to trend towards, you ask for 100,000, you'll get 50,000, and you'll have to put in your 50,000 to get you the rest of the way? Or is it very, very grant specific?
Very, very grant specific.
Okay.
However, I always tend to tell people to definitely put your some cushion in there.
Mhm.
You don't ever want to be in a situation where you're unable to. That's one another reason why a lot of government grants are so detailed and so specific. So they will be asking for various information, such as, you know, who all you're going to have on your team. Let's see your
Mhm.
organization chart. Let's see a timeline of everything that they're going to be doing. They're going to be asking for milestones and various things that are going to be happening along the way. They're going to be asking for, if you're asking for a particular personnel to be added to this particular grant, then they want to know, like, what is it they're going to be doing, how much time they're going to be devoting to it.
Mhm.
Are they going to be working 100% on just that grant? Or, because you're hiring them through that grant, or you're hiring them through the grant, it should be 100%,
Yeah.
on that grant. Okay. So, so now at that point, yes, you're able to, you definitely want to make sure that you have your what is it, your benefits packages averaged in there correctly.
Mhm.
You want to have everything in there, but you definitely want to make sure that, it is an estimate, because who knows? It may be a situation where, like with COVID, right? COVID changed a lot of grant programs during that time, because there were a lot of grant programs that were front facing, meaning that they were based off of meeting this person, seeing this person, collecting people and different things like that. So even those may have had cushions with them. But even if you have to have some modifications later on, it's always important for you to have a great relationship with whoever the funder contact is. So that
Mhm.
program manager or that program person, that's going to be your best friend for the whole duration of that program,
Mhm.
that you'll have going on. So you would just contact them and let them know, like, hey, we're trying to spend down this money.
Mhm.
We're trying to spend down this money. And we need a little bit of extra time if circumstances has changed. Okay. And so, look, funders need to give out the money. That's what they're there for. A lot of them, as long as they know that you're doing the work, that the work is getting done, a lot of them, and proper documentation and different things like that is done, they don't have a problem with you making certain modifications here and there,
Mhm.
as you need to be. So I would say estimate appropriately. I would always estimate over than, estimating too far down. You don't want to be in a situation where you can't pay anybody, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's what's been the hardest thing for you to navigate as a grant writer, and specifically when it comes to your clients and their expectations, as well as what your expectations or what you would hope would be the process with the grant itself? And I guess my question more specifically is, have there been situations where what your expectations were, what your hopes were, as far as what could come from a grant, maybe were not met? Something about how the grant was being reviewed, how it was being provided, for the awarded entities, how those resources were being allocated that just really caught you off guard? And is that the norm? Or is it more normal that everything kind of goes point by point by point and no changes are made after, the grant is released?
Okay. Are you talking about, okay, and I want to make sure that I understand your
Mhm.
question. Are we talking about now this person has gone through the process, they've researched the grant, now they've gotten the grant, they've been awarded the grant, now they're going through the process of being managing the grant. And then, this is where we are. We want to make sure that we're in alignment with the grant as it's being managed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, at that stage, but also earlier on. Have you seen where a grant is making maybe promises of what the award ceiling is, and then for, a client that says, I want to go up to the award ceiling, our project is big enough to warrant, let's say, a quarter million, $500,000, and then you find out that the grant awards, none of them met that ceiling. Every grant award was lower than what you were told to expect.
Mm, okay. Well, I try to manage my expectations,
Mhm,
and a lot of things that we have very good communication. My clients and I, we talk about things. I don't believe in just writing a grant for someone and that's just it, and me
mhm,
passing it back to them and that's it. So if that's the expectation, they probably wouldn't be my client because
yeah,
I don't write fiction. So there are situations where we do manage expectations in the sense of we have communication and collaboration where I want to know what is it that you're trying to do or get from this grant, and what is it that you say that you're going to do, to make sure that what we're writing, that it accurately depicts what it is that you're going to and are capable of doing, so
mhm,
that we're not writing something that is not true, or either, something that you can't do. It may sound beautiful on paper, but there's nothing like having a beautifully written grant that is not implementable, you know,
mm,
or is not capable of being implemented, is probably the best way of saying it. I have been a grant program administrator before,
mhm,
so I know what it's like to be working on a grant that was written beautifully, beautifully written grant, beautiful.
mhm,
But the processes within the organization didn't allow for the way that the grant was written
yeah,
administratively. Like there were certain things that they said would happen, different ways that uh, I guess the way a person would be paid.
mm,
Okay. Those are things that need to be talked about through HR or whatever as well. And and it may be even be a situation where you can say certain things about how or the frequency of what the way someone's going to get paid, but maybe it may be that maybe it's TMI, maybe it's too much information of, every little bitty little detail. You may put in the frequency, the amount, who's going to get paid what, various things like that. But there may be like certain internal processes may not necessarily be covered within a particular grant, or even necessarily need to be and
mhm,
covered in the grant. It needs to be, strictly what it is that you can do and what it is that you're going to do within the grant. And also for sustainability purposes and evaluation purposes, you may even want to put in there certain things where if various things aren't met, as
mm,
we're talking about research and different things like that, if certain milestones aren't hit, how will you pivot? How will you work on trying to hit those milestones moving forward?
mm,
Because within various reports, because there are a lot of reports that have to be filed with various grants, they're going to ask you those questions. Did you hit a certain milestones? If you said that you're going to serve 85% of students within a certain length of time and you only served 75%, then you may have to account for where did that, why did you not hit that number?
mhm,
Why, was there, such why is the amount not being met? So those are certain things that for me and my client we talk through to make sure that we're able to challenge each other. I want
mhm,
them to be challenged, but at the same time, I want them to be able to have measurable goals that make sense for the
yeah,
organization itself. So I think communication and being realistic about what it is that they can do, that does
mhm,
help, because we want to say, okay, well, we want to go out and we're going to save the world, or we're going to have to narrow it down. Okay, well, now we can serve 1,000, students. You're going to serve 1,000 students when? Are you going to serve 100, 100 over the course of 10 months. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Or, you have to break those things down. And so we have some serious, very transparent conversations, very, I think communication helps, and having a realistic and managing expectations truly help with that.
Okay, fantastic. Is there, um, my last question, I guess, is specifically what are the things that you've seen grants maybe fund the most, or there, and I mean, I guess that's probably a bad question because grants can fund a lot of things. What are some of the things that grants don't fund? And I guess my question is specifically coming from customers who have, say, a continuing project and they want to see if they can use grant funding to either help them to, let's say, cover the cost next year or to help them fund an expansion to the project. So they're not doing anything new, but they know that they have a project or a program that they want to continue to invest in, or that they, it's going to be it's a $50,000 investment every single year. Can they pursue grant funding to add to that or cover that $50,000 next year? Is that something that would be impermissible to use or pursue grant funding for an existing project? Or, specifically, I guess what are the things that grant funding can't support?
Okay. Well, I will say this, a lot of grant funding will not support
Mhm,
individual use, things like that. However, there are, like I said earlier before when we started this, there's a lot of grant opportunity out there now for pilot programs and for expansion as well.
mhm,
I don't like for clients to be just totally um dependent on grants, right?
mm,
So a lot of grants now will ask the question about sustainability and what you're going to do moving forward,
mm,
what you're going to do moving forward after the grant process is over, okay? And you a lot of times you have to have an answer for that. So, but the caveat to that is there are
mhm,
workarounds, okay? So sometimes people may not have the internal capacity to take it
mhm,
on their own as far as through the organizations. Yes, yet they're still working on it, right?
mhm,
So I'm not going to say that they probably would do the exact same program, but why not expand to a larger audience or something like that? That could be different. You see what I'm
mhm,
saying? Maybe expanding into another region,
mhm,
maybe adding more people to the grant. That's different. Maybe adding one other component that may have been different, from the first grant, or almost every grant you find some good things and some bad things about it, right?
mhm,
So you could probably even use that to say, okay, well, the first round we did it, we had a great time, whatever, but we learned that there were some things that we'd like to improve upon, right?
mhm,
So if we have another round of that, of that monies, or increase the amount of money that we have available for this, we can actually address those issues and challenges that we had, and make
mm,
sure that we're able to move forward with a more robust and successful grant application and program, right?
mhm,
So there are different ways to kind of to I guess frame it, so that it's not necessarily you doing the exact same thing. Because if you're doing the exact same thing, no movement, no nothing, it's something about it that needs to change. It's
yeah,
something about it. If it's not sustainable, beyond that, it's something about it that needs to change, or something that needs to be expanded, or that can, that can be improved upon.
gotcha. So really, as long as obviously each grant has a different priority area, but as long as your overall goal fits the priority of the grant, the only things that really aren't going to be funded are, your personal use of funds. You're not going to be able to use it to pay for vacation.
Not at all.
Um, and
Food
if
a lot of
they,
times too. That's weird. No,
yeah,
seriously, seriously, we've run into that with some clients as well. Like, and we know it, food a lot of time brings people out,
Yeah.
especially if it has something to do with outreach and various things like that, a lot
Mm.
of time food does help. So food, that's something that, a lot of people, especially with government grants, some foundations will allow you to, have some very creative uses for, things, but those are things that you need to specifically address with your program manager or whatever for that particular funder. But what I
Mm.
would do is maybe you can reach out to, if that's an issue, reach out to maybe a corporate sponsor,
Mhm.
because some of those corporate entities give out grants as well.
Mm.
The Walmarts, the Targets, the KFCs, almost every large entity that you know about has a foundation arm to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that may be a way for you to, feed your people. But food a lot of times gets a lot of people in trouble, you know.
Okay. Okay. All right. So some of the basic things that we covered today are kind of getting ready for a grant or being grant ready. Obviously having the right documentation in place, having your org chart in place so that, especially as it pertains to what you put into the grant, you can show who's going to be a part of managing this, who's going to be a part of making this program a reality once you get the funding. Having your financials, making sure that your organization name, organization address, organization documentation is all uniform, because that's a surefire way to have delays in your kind of like your getting ready process. Um, some of the big priorities that you mentioned are digital literacy, and addressing the digital divide, and then also the emerging cybersecurity grants that have come out. And then the process of finding grants, unfortunately, there isn't really a way to make it easy. But one thing that you mentioned is reaching out to local representatives, seeing if they have some type of connection to the federal grant administrators, seeing if there are any particular grants that they pay attention to and that maybe they can pass along to you as well. There's also a program you mentioned, the Charity Navigator for nonprofits, being able to see what funders are out there that are large funders and maybe building relationships with them to pursue new fundraising opportunities with those entities too. So, Naisha, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, to speak with our audience. Again, a lot of people in our audience are taking advantage of or trying to take advantage of federal and state programs. So hopefully this is very helpful. Do you mind if we include your email, your contact information in the description for
Absolutely.
this? All right, fantastic.
Absolutely. It's great.
So,
Thank you for inviting me. I
absolutely.
love things, all things grants, and just basically helping out organizations and things like that as well. Because I think I've seen so many amazing organizations out here,
Mm,
and one of the reasons why we're in business is to make sure that these organizations that have amazing programs, government entities, that they're still able to serve, their
mhm,
constituency, that they're still able to do what it is that they are on mission to do.
mhm.
Um, and because the funders are there, the funders do have the money. I have personal friends that, that are leading various foundations and things like that. They do want to give the money out. It's just that, there may be some hiccups along the way with making sure that the funder is in a position to get that money.
Gotcha. All right. Well, um, hopefully we can keep doing our part to help people to be grant ready, to stay aware of what's going on out there. But I appreciate the help that you give us, that allows us to be a better help to our customers. And I don't think this is going to be the last time we do something like this. So appreciate you
Okay.
joining today, and here's to the next time.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.